Thank you to Goat Games for sponsoring this video. Goat Games and their mobile game Bloodline Heroes of Lithis have sponsored this video. Now is actually the best time to try out Bloodline, as the game is having its best update. The new Lycan clan, Gultung, is coming to the game this Christmas with a sleek new design. Bloodline Heroes of Lithis is a hero collector fantasy RPG with a 3D art style in which you can build your kingdom and collect champions to defend it and the world. You can even create your own unique legendary champions by combining the bloodlines of elves, demons, demigods, orcs, dwarves, lycans, dragonborns, and vampires. For a limited time only, players will be able to obtain a Gultung champion for free by participating in the Christmas event starting December 22nd. Starting this December, all players can enjoy battling in the new Guild War, Valley of Conquerors, on brand new maps and being rewarded with legendary hybrids. For the first season, everyone has the chance to claim a Champion Scarlet, a rare combination of demigod and vampire. Gather your team and start playing now so that you can get her for free by just simply beating your enemies. New bloodlines and legendary hybrids are constantly being added to the game as well, which means that possibilities are endless for you to seek out the greatest hybrid to suit your style. Download the game now for free on both Android and iOS using my link in the description or scanning the QR code on the screen. By doing that, you will get a special starter pack worth $20, 3 stamina potions, 100,000 gold, and 100 diamonds. Remember, you'll also get that free Lycan champion this Christmas starting December 22nd. Use the link in my description to install Bloodline for free and get a special starter pack available for the next 30 days. Thank you again to Goat Games and Bloodline Champion of Lithis for sponsoring this video. What is the price of a whale? And no, not the full of blubber kind either. I'm talking about whales as in the context of an online game. A whale in the online gaming context describes a player that goes above and beyond the normal monetary means to play a game. While most players are paying the bare minimum or nothing at all, these players spend enough money to make up for hundreds, thousands, and perhaps even more players. Whaling is the concept of a video game, usually online RPGs, trying to cash in on the money a whale provides and get them to start spending on their game. These are two major concepts in the world of online virtual gaming, and two concepts I want to dive into more detail about in this video. Whales and whaling contribute to a worse online gaming environment overall, and has become such an addictive proposition for aspiring online games. I will explain what the actual cost is of a whale, why they are so hotly sought after, to the point of rewriting entire game designs, and why whales and whaling are both making online gaming worse, and have also made it weirdly better. The origin of a whale in the video game context, of course, finds itself at the start of the entire story of online RPG microtransactions, which is rather fitting, right? The beginning of it all. This is an excerpt from my other video on microtransactions and the birth of pay-to-win. Free-to-play games with microtransactions were largely invented by Nexon, a popular Asian publisher of MMO titles, because they were at the point of removing one of their failing MMOs. As an experiment, the team decided to give away the game, which was titled Quiz Quiz, for free, and sell a few cosmetic and in-game items as a sort of test. This was back in the early 1990s. When their revenue soared 16% over that same year, they obviously realized that they were onto something. Lee Sung-chang, the creator of Quiz Quiz, would later go on to create MapleStory in 2003, one of the most popular MMOs of all time and one of the highest grossing MMOs of all time. What started as an internal test of sorts became a very viable business strategy, and soon all of Nexon's games were utilizing the same free-to-play model. This carried on till about 2005 through 2006, when Nexon launched their American subsidiary, Nexon America. By this point, according to Wizit, the developer behind MapleStory, the game had earned over $300 million US, and over 1 million customers had bought an item from their cash shop, which was a method of purchasing these said in-game items. Cash shops sold cosmetics, items, and other vanity items were purchasable with either in-game currency or real-life currency, thus creating what people know today as microtransactions. In a game like Quiz Quiz, the birthplace of microtransactions, whales were first discovered, and suddenly developers both found a genius way to keep a game alive and make more money at the same time. Whales in this context were the last remaining players who in some cases know that the game will perish if they leave. And these players were spending enough money to continue to warrant a live status for the game Quiz, which helped lead to whales becoming a common concept by 2007. Whales weren't always so negatively stigmatized though. If anything, whales were quite often seen as heroes, because in some games, well, without a few players spending far more than other players, the games would have just been shuttered. It became a strategy and still is today for games to start to try monetizing in ways that fulfill a powerful fantasy or a compelling experience, even if at the expense of others. It creates this symbiotic relationship where both sides are clearly using each other. Whales these days are more so about making money though, and whales are explicitly called out in monetization strategies more recently. For example, with ArcAge, one of the most successful and innovative MMOs ever, probably one of the biggest money-making MMOs ever, created by Jake's Song of Lineage fame, another one of the most successful MMOs of all time. ArcAge is notorious at utilizing whales to make absurd amounts of money, and it's done it over and over again through like 4 releases. This is because in a game like ArcAge, it's an open-world PvP sandbox with direct incentive to spend money for power or gear in some cases. And with the labor system, which means that you only get a finite amount of these points daily unless you spend money, right? This means that you are greatly incentivized for spending more money and thus finding more ways to increase your power. Video games are largely power fantasies, so this shouldn't be that surprising, right? And whales are essentially living these fantasies with a lot less restrictions on their funds. Not to just pick on ArcAge either, with more egregious examples like Black Desert Online that exist, to be fair. These sorts of games have incredible grinds and have these high-reaching economies, so it greatly incentivizes players, which are social humans who recognize hierarchies and have a desire to elevate their own hierarchy and spend inordinate amounts of time and money to maintain that status and also be competitive. This is the case outside of video games. This is the case in anything: hobbies, sports, careers, you name it. In some games, like the aforementioned though, it becomes a gulf between those who spend lots of money and those who don't spend any, as it no longer becomes competitive. This further fulfills the whale's power fantasy, because it no longer matters how good of a player they are or how good they play. There are a few issues that whales cause, however. First, you have to acknowledge, as the concept became wider known, it was used a lot less as a way to save a game and more of just a way to make money from the beginning. Whales as a concept are incredibly difficult to unseat as well, and that's because, well, 2 things: psychology and mathematics. We kind of already covered the psychology aspects already, and obviously I'm not qualified to deep dive into psychology, but it's basically the desire to win and dominate. But the math part is even simpler and even more deadly. For example, if there are 100,000 subscribers for a given game, and those subscribers are only paying a sub fee of $10 each, then you have $1 million in revenue. That money is capped due to lacking a cash shop and other ways to monetize, which, to be fair, just subscriptions don't really exist anymore, but they did at one point. And you can see why they got phased out. A free-to-play game, far more accessible, can have a far more machine gun or shotgun approach. They can appeal to far more players due to a lower barrier of entry, and simultaneously by designing the game to incentivize the microtransactions and the whaling we have discussed. Let's talk numbers again though, right? Mathematics. That $1 million monthly is already impressive enough, but companies like to make more money, especially corporations, as they essentially are designed to, even to a fault. But imagine instead that you have in a free-to-play game only 5,000 paying customers, and more significantly, paying customers, aka whales. And those 5,000 whales only spend $200. You get the same number. That's the crazy part. $1 million. That's the power of whales in online gaming. You don't even need to impress that big of an audience anymore. You just need to cast wide enough of a net and have the right design to attract a whale. 5% of the same size audience that we previously mentioned can make the same amount of money. And before you think that $200 is an unfair and crazy amount, I've seen way more reports that say that whales spend upwards of thousands of dollars, which furthers my point. So whales make the developer and publisher way more money than a typical player, especially when you remove the cost ceiling that we discussed and add a cash shop and other ways to monetize. This means in large part, online video games are being marketed and sold to these kinds of players instead of the base player, who just pays the minimum. At least it's trending that direction due to players not offering the correct pushback to predatory monetization or pay-to-win mechanics. It's so difficult to beat this system though, and once a whale's interest outweighs yours, you're not playing the same game anymore. They have a considerable advantage on you. In some markets like the Eastern world, people don't even mind as much, it's supported. But it's still largely rejected in the Western world, to be fair. And before players ask, how does this affect me, because I know people always are wondering that, especially in the context of an online world, I will explain. That's because if they're able to buy power, it means that it will now affect you both in PvP and PvE. And in an online world, players in the world itself are connected, so developers allowing players to obtain pay-to-win mechanics, which whales quite enjoy, hurts the entire player base unless everyone is consenting to this sort of style of game, like in the Eastern market. But oftentimes, people don't. Ultimately, developers creating incentive for players to whale isn't some sort of inherent evil, and there's nothing wrong with people in real life spending more of their hard-earned cash because they choose to, especially to support a game they love. The issue is more so in how this sort of situation can affect the game design, and thus the players who don't want to even partake in the credit card race. Not only year after year have we seen the concept of pay-to-win deteriorate more and more as people just essentially debase the definition, aka people effectively act like it doesn't exist anymore. The players who benefit from it aren't going to complain and enjoy obfuscating discussion further, elongating the issue. At the end of the day though, the only person who really benefits from this is the company that's making money off of you, which is why I wanted to educate everyone on this concept and the concept surrounding whales and whaling, because some of you might have unconsciously been fitting into this stereotype, while others might not have an idea of how this can positively and negatively affect the industry. There's no easy solution, as I already stated, but the best thing that you can do is let your voice be heard and keep definitions like whale and pay to win defended, because remember, the only people who don't want you to understand such terms are those that are trying to make a buck off of your ignorance. That's it for this editorial though, detectives. Thanks for watching as always. Let me know in the comments what topic you want me to cover next. And developers, happy whale hunting.